when a railroad baron slapped a horse at auction. But the horse responded in a devastating way. The sun rose slowly over the dusty plains of the Martian frontier, turning the red soil into a glowing orange. In the small settlement of Ridridge Station, the streets were already crowded with settlers, traders, and ranchers. They came from all corners of the colony to see the auction of the strongest and rarest horses ever bred for the harsh Martian environment. These were no ordinary animals. They had been carefully engineered to survive the thin air, the strong winds, and the sharp rocks of the planet. Many settlers whispered about the horses' unusual intelligence, claiming some could almost understand human thoughts. Among the crowd, a hush fell as a sleek horse was led into the auction arena. Its coat shimmered silver under the morning light, and its eyes had a strange glow, reflecting intelligence and calm strength. People murmured to each other. Some said the horse had been trained on Earth. Others said it was born here in the colonies, where the thin air had made it faster and stronger than any Earth horse. At the front of the crowd, standing tall with his polished boots and fine coat, was Caldwell Thorne. He was a man whose name carried fear across the frontier. The railroad baron had made his fortune by building tracks across planets, often taking land from settlers with little mercy. His wealth gave him power, and his arrogance made him cruel. Wherever Caldwell went, people either bowed or watched silently, afraid of what he might do. The auctioneer, a thin man with a voice that cut through the chatter, stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called, "today you will see some of the finest horses ever bred in the Martian colonies. Remember, these horses are not just animals. They are partners, workers, and protectors. Bid wisely." The first few horses went quickly. They were strong, but none drew the attention that the silver-coated horse had. When it was brought into the center, the crowd leaned forward, fascinated. Its head was held high, muscles rippling under its skin, and it moved with grace that seemed too perfect for a wild frontier. People whispered, "It knows its power." Caldwell stepped closer. His eyes narrowed, a smirk appearing on his face. He was used to controlling everything, from rail lines to men and machines. A horse that acted as if it had a mind of its own was unacceptable to him. He moved forward, reached out, and slapped the horse sharply on its side. The sound echoed across the auction grounds. The horse froze. Its ears twitched, nostrils flaring, and its glowing eyes fixed on Caldwell. The crowd gasped. No horse had ever been treated like this in front of so many people, and none had reacted so quietly and powerfully. The ground under Caldwell's boots seemed to shiver slightly. A few onlookers stepped back, whispering nervously. "Ha! It thinks it can resist me," Caldwell laughed, confident that the animal would flinch or bolt. "I own this auction and I own everything in it." But the horse did not move. It simply stepped back one slow, precise step, keeping its glowing eyes on Caldwell. There was no fear in those eyes. The crowd was silent, all eyes fixed on the scene. The energy of the moment felt strange, almost electric. Even the auctioneer paused, unsure how to continue. Then something unexpected happened. The horse's hooves touched the ground lightly, and a faint ripple ran through the soil. Dust rose from the ground. A few settlers looked at each other, eyes wide. "Did you see that?" one whispered. "It's like the horse feels the land, like it knows something we do not." Caldwell's smirk faded slightly. He waved his hand to the auctioneer, trying to show control. "Continue the bidding," he barked, his voice sharp. "This horse will be mine. I pay whatever it takes." Bidding started. Settlers raised their hands, throwing in numbers, but none dared challenge Caldwell's fortune openly. Still, there were whispers about the horse, calling it a sentinel, a protector. Rumors spread that it had survived storms that could kill normal horses and had outsmarted even the best trainers. The silver-coated horse watched quietly as the numbers went up. Its muscles were tense but calm, as if it could decide when to move or even whether to allow itself to be sold. Caldwell, growing impatient, walked closer again. He raised his hand to strike the horse once more, but this time the horse did something astonishing. Its eyes flashed a brilliant light just for a second, and a soft vibration ran through the ground beneath them. Caldwell's boots shook. He stumbled slightly but caught himself, glaring at the animal. No one spoke. The settlers felt the strange energy, and a shiver ran down many spines. It was as if the horse was not just standing there, it was testing him. The auctioneer cleared his throat nervously. Perhaps we should let the horse calm down before continuing," he said. But Caldwell waved him off. Nonsense. This is my property to claim. If it resists me, then it has no place here. He reached for his whip, intending to show dominance. The horse lowered its head slightly, nostrils flaring, and its tail swished once in slow motion. Then it stomped the ground. The stomp was soft, but the vibration was enough to unsettle a few nearby crates and tools. Small cracks appeared in the reinforced floor tiles, and dust rose in gentle clouds. The settlers gasped. Some held their hats, fearing the horse might strike back. But it did not attack. Instead, it stood perfectly still, its glowing eyes fixed on Caldwell. It was clear to everyone, this horse was intelligent beyond normal understanding. It did not act on fear or anger, but on instinct and awareness. Caldwell's face turned red with anger. His pride had been wounded, and he hated that a horse could show such defiance. "You insolent beast!" he shouted, but his voice now lacked the same power it had before. Around him, the crowd whispered, "It's alive in a way that is different. It can think, it can defend itself." A young rancher near the back, who had seen many horses in his life, muttered under his breath, "I've never seen anything like this. It's as if it knows who we are, even what we plan to do." The horse's gaze never left Caldwell. It did not move forward, did not attack. It simply waited, calm but ready, as if the whole auction, the whole frontier, belonged to its awareness. Finally, Caldwell, frustrated and humiliated, stepped back. He waved his hand, signaling the auctioneer to continue, but his confidence had faltered. The crowd, now fully aware of the horse's power, began murmuring excitedly. Bidding continued, but with a new respect. The horse's presence had changed the mood. What was once a simple auction was now a stage for legend. Even the auctioneer, usually confident and commanding, could not help but whisper to himself, "This horse, it is something else, something we cannot control." Caldwell, glaring at the horse, knew he had underestimated it. He had thought wealth and power were enough to dominate any creature, but the horse had shown him otherwise. The settlers watched, feeling a mix of fear and admiration. They understood that this animal was not just strong or fast. It was alive in a way that defied the usual rules of the frontier. By the time the sun climbed higher, the auction ended for that morning. The silver-coated horse had not been sold to Caldwell. It had remained calm, powerful, and untamed, leaving the baron frustrated and the settlers amazed. People whispered that this was the horse of legend, the one that would change the way the frontier thought about animals and power. Caldwell left the auction with a sneer but a new awareness. His empire of railroads and wealth could not command respect from a creature that acted with intelligence and instinct. He would not forget this day. The horse, meanwhile, was led back to its pen, quiet and alert. Its glowing eyes reflected the sunlight, a warning and a promise to anyone who might try to dominate it without respect. As the settlers returned to their homes and businesses, they told each other the story in hushed tones. "Did you see it?" one asked. "It stopped the baron without even touching him." Another nodded. "We are on the edge of a new frontier, not just for humans, but for these creatures too. They are not ours to control. They are our partners, our equals in this harsh world." And so the silver-coated horse became a symbol of strength, intelligence, and independence. Even in a world of dust, machines, and ambition, it showed that courage and instinct could stand against arrogance and power. The story of the auction, and the moment when the railroad baron slapped the horse, would be told across the Martian frontier for years to come. The silver-coated horse had returned to its stall after the auction, calm but alert. Its muscles rippled under the thin Martian air as it shook its head lightly, ears twitching to catch the smallest sound. Settlers and ranchers spoke in whispers outside the pen, still amazed at what had happened earlier. Even the children who had followed the auction that morning spoke of the glowing eyes and the way the horse had seemed to command the ground itself. Elena Voss, the horse's rider and trainer, entered the pen. She was a strong, capable woman with hands hardened by years of ranch work, but her eyes were gentle when they looked at the horse. She knelt, running her fingers along its neck. "Easy now," she said softly. "You did well today. They will talk about this for a long time." The horse nuzzled her gently, almost as if it understood every word. Elena smiled, knowing the animal's intelligence was beyond normal. It was not just smart, it was aware. A creature born to survive harsh worlds, yet capable of sensing danger and responding with careful judgment. Across the town, Caldwell Thorne's fury had not cooled. In his private office, walls lined with maps and contracts, he paced back and forth. The auction had humiliated him, and the silver-coated horse had humiliated him even more. His wealth could buy armies of men, machines, and rail lines, yet it could not control this animal. He slammed his fist on the table. "That horse is not normal," he muttered. "No creature should resist me like that. I will find a way to bend it to my will." Caldwell had never been used to failing. Power had always been his language, and when that language failed, he grew dangerous. He began plotting. He called his best engineers and mechanics, men who had built machines to bulldoze settlements and track rebels. "We will deal with this horse," he said. "Find a way to stop it, and do it quietly. I do not want the settlers to know what we are planning until it is too late." Meanwhile, life in Ridridge Station went on, but the legend of the horse grew. Settlers shared stories of how the horse had resisted Caldwell's aggression without causing harm. They spoke of its glowing eyes, the energy it seemed to command, and its perfect control. Ranchers who had once mocked the horse now looked at it with admiration and respect. Alina prepared for the next day's work. The horse needed exercise, food, and attention, but she also knew the danger that might be coming. Caldwell would not forget. She saddled the horse carefully, feeling the warmth and strength beneath her hands. Today, she would ride it across the plains, letting it stretch its legs and test its limits. As she led the horse out of the stable, the sun began to rise over the Martian horizon. The plains were quiet, save for the sound of wind sweeping across rocks and ridges. Alina climbed onto the horse, and it responded immediately, moving forward with a smooth, powerful gait. Its hooves barely made a sound on the rocky soil, and every step seemed measured and deliberate. They rode for hours, moving away from the settlement. The horse's senses were alert, detecting the slightest shifts in the air, the faintest vibrations in the ground. Alina felt its awareness, how it could anticipate the wind, the movement of distant rocks, and the subtle changes in the landscape. It was as if the horse were reading the land, predicting the future in tiny, precise motions. Suddenly, the horse stopped. Alina looked ahead and saw faint traces of tracks in the red soil, tracks made by mechanical wheels, too precise to be natural. Her heart skipped a beat. "Caldwell," she whispered. She knew the Baron would not leave the morning's humiliation alone. He was sending his machines, his enforcers, to retrieve the horse and teach the settlers a lesson. The horse sniffed the air, its glowing eyes scanning the horizon. Then, without hesitation, it turned and began moving swiftly through a narrow canyon. Alina held on tightly, feeling the power in every muscle beneath her. The canyon walls rose high on either side, a maze of jagged stone and shadows. The horse navigated perfectly, avoiding rocks and sharp turns with ease. Behind them, the faint rumble of machines began to grow. Caldwell had sent his rail-based enforcers, small but fast machines designed to intimidate and capture. They moved with precision, but the horse was faster. Alina leaned forward, guiding it, yet mostly letting it choose the path. Every step was instinct and intelligence perfectly combined. The machines tried to trap them, spreading out to block exits, but the horse anticipated every movement. It leaped over a narrow gap between rocks, hooves barely touching the edges, and slid into a hidden pass. The machines followed, but the narrow space slowed them. Sparks flew as metal scraped against rock, and a few machines faltered, their systems overloaded by the canyon's twists and the horse's energy pulses. Alina could hardly believe it. She had trained the horse, yes, but this intelligence, this ability to react to danger in ways no human could predict, was beyond anything she had seen. Every movement was precise, measured, and perfectly timed. The horse did not attack the machines directly, but it disrupted them, sending them off balance, jamming gears, and forcing errors. By the time the sun was high in the sky, they had reached an open plateau. The plains stretched endlessly, the red Martian soil glowing under the bright light. Alina dismounted to rest, and the horse walked slowly beside her, breathing softly. They were safe for now, but Alina knew Caldwell would not give up. His obsession was growing, and the horse had become more than a legend. It was a target. Back in Ridridge Station, rumors spread. Settlers told each other how the horse had escaped the Baron's machines, how it had used the land and its intelligence to protect its rider and itself. Children ran to see where it had gone, pointing to the plateau and imagining the glowing eyes of the animal that could outsmart machines. Ranchers nodded to each other, realizing that the frontier had changed. A new force, wild yet intelligent, had entered their world. Caldwell, meanwhile, was growing desperate. In his office, he studied maps, models, and reports. He sent out more enforcers, mechanical trackers with sensors and weapons, but each attempt failed. The horse was always one step ahead, leading Alina safely through terrain no machine could navigate alone. At night, Alina camped on the plateau. The stars shone bright in the thin atmosphere, casting long shadows on the red soil. The horse grazed quietly, but its ears twitched constantly, alert to every sound. Alina sat by the fire, thinking about the day's events. "You are more than a horse," she said softly. "You are a guardian, a sentinel, but we cannot hide forever. Caldwell will find us. We must be ready." The horse nuzzled her hand gently, as if understanding her words. Its glowing eyes reflected the firelight, a reminder of its strength and awareness. Alina knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges and that the Baron's obsession could turn dangerous. Yet she also knew that together, they had an advantage no human or machine could match. The bond between rider and horse was strong, built on trust, instinct, and shared courage. As the night deepened, the wind swept across the plains. The horse's ears flicked, sensing distant vibrations. Alina noticed and held her breath. Far across the desert, faint lights moved, machines glinting under the stars. Caldwell's enforcers were coming. They had not given up. The horse lifted its head, nostrils flaring, eyes glowing softly. Alina mounted quickly, feeling the familiar surge of power beneath her. The horse moved forward with precision, choosing paths that were narrow, rocky, and dangerous to machines. Sparks flew as the enforcers tried to follow, but the horse's instincts guided them safely, every leap calculated, every turn perfect. By dawn, they had reached a high ridge overlooking a deep canyon. The machines were far below, struggling to navigate the rocks. Alina looked at the horse, awe in her eyes. "You are amazing," she said. The horse whinnied softly, as if agreeing. The settlers who watched from Ridge would tell stories of the silver-coated horse that day, not just a creature of strength, but of intelligence and courage. It had outsmarted machines, resisted the Baron, and protected its rider without harming anyone. Its legend was growing, spreading across the Martian frontier like wildfire. And Caldwell Thorne. He seethed in his office, realizing that no amount of money or machines could control this animal. The silver-coated horse had changed the balance of power. In the quiet moments before the morning sun, he plotted his next move, unaware that the frontier itself seemed to side with the horse. A living reminder that some things could not be bought, dominated, or controlled. The story of the day would be told over and over, a story of courage, intelligence, and instinct. And as the horse and Alina rode across the plateau, the settlers whispered in awe. The Martian frontier had a new guardian, and Caldwell would learn that no force, no matter how powerful, could easily conquer it. The Martian frontier was changing. Word had spread quickly about the silver-coated horse that had defied Caldwell Thorne and outsmarted his machines. Settlers spoke in hushed voices about its intelligence and strength, and ranchers looked at the plains with new respect. The horse was no longer just an animal. It was becoming a symbol, a living legend of freedom and courage. Alina Voss rode the horse across the open plains early one morning. The wind swept past her face, carrying the scent of iron-rich soil and the faint tang of distant water sources. The horse moved effortlessly, muscles rippling under its sleek coat, hooves barely making a sound as it navigated the rough terrain. Alina held the reins loosely, letting the animal guide her. Its instincts were precise. It knew when to jump over jagged rocks, when to turn sharply to avoid loose soil, and when to move cautiously near deep cliffs. They were not alone for long. From the horizon came the faint hum of mechanical engines. Caldwell had not given up. He had sent another group of enforcers, faster and smarter than the last. Their machines glinted under the harsh Martian sun, small but powerful, with sensors that could detect heat, movement, and even vibrations in the soil. Alina's heart quickened, but she remained calm. The horse lifted its head, ears flicking toward the approaching threat. Its glowing eyes reflected awareness and focus. Alina knew it could sense danger far better than any human. "Let's see what they want," she whispered. The horse responded immediately, adjusting its pace and path with careful calculation. The machines spread out across the plains, trying to trap them between rocky outcrops. Sparks flew as some skidded over the rough terrain, metal scraping against stone. But the horse anticipated each move. It led Alina through narrow passes and uneven ridges, small jumps that would have damaged the machine's delicate parts. One by one, the mechanical trackers faltered. Gears jammed, wheels twisted, and engines overheated from the strain. Alina looked down at the horse with awe. "You're incredible," she said softly. The animal whinnied gently, as if acknowledging her praise. It did not attack the machines, but it had a presence that forced them to fail. Its intelligence was unmatched. As they moved across the plains, settlers and ranchers watched from a safe distance. They whispered excitedly, pointing at the horse and its rider. Children clutched their parents' hands, eyes wide with wonder. The silver-coated horse was not just protecting Alina, it was showing the frontier a new kind of power. One that was not based on wealth, machines, or cruelty, but on intelligence, instinct, and courage. Meanwhile, Caldwell Thorne seethed in his office. He had spent a fortune sending machines and enforcers, yet the horse had outsmarted every attempt. Maps of the plains and canyon systems were spread across his desk. "This horse," he muttered, clenching his fists, "is impossible. No creature should be able to think like this. I will find a way to break it, or at least capture it." But the settlers of Redridge Station had begun to take notice. They were no longer afraid of Caldwell's wealth or his machines. Stories of the horse's abilities inspired them. Ranchers trained their herds with more care, learning from the animal's instincts. Traders offered supplies to Alina, hoping to gain favor with the horse that could change the balance of power on the frontier. The silver-coated horse had become more than a legend. It was a protector, a sentinel against tyranny. One evening, Alina and the horse reached the edge of a deep canyon. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the rocky walls. The horse paused, nostrils flaring, ears alert. Alina dismounted and studied the canyon floor. Faint tracks of machines led down into the shadows, a reminder that Caldwell had not given up. The horse whinnied softly, then stepped forward with careful precision. Alina followed, guiding it but mostly letting it choose the path. The canyon walls rose high, jagged and uneven, but the horse navigated them effortlessly. Small rocks shifted under its hooves, yet it maintained perfect balance. Sparks flew from the machines below as they tried to descend, some tipping over, some getting stuck. Alina could hardly believe her eyes. The horse was not just strong, it was smart. It calculated every move, every jump, every turn. It protected her from harm without needing to attack. She understood then that this horse was a creature of instinct, intelligence, and awareness beyond human understanding. By nightfall, they had reached a plateau above the canyon. The horizon stretched endlessly, red soil meeting the darkening sky. Alina set up camp and the horse grazed quietly, ears flicking constantly to catch the slightest sound. She built a small fire and sat beside it, thinking about the day's events. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "Caldwell will try again, but we are ready. You and I, we can handle anything." The horse nuzzled her hand, gentle and reassuring. Its glowing eyes reflected the firelight, a reminder of its power and awareness. Alina smiled, knowing that together they had an advantage no human or machine could match. That night, the settlers of Redridge told stories of the horse. They spoke of how it had outsmarted machines, avoided danger, and protected its rider. Ranchers nodded, realizing that the frontier had changed. The silver-coated horse was not just a creature of strength, it was a guide, a teacher, and a protector. Caldwell Thorne, meanwhile, planned his next move. He would not stop. His obsession with the horse grew, and he began hiring rogue mercenaries, skilled hunters, and even experimental robots designed to capture or destroy it. But no one could predict the horse's instincts, its intelligence, and its ability to read the land. As dawn broke, Alina and the horse moved again, traveling across the plains. They avoided the main paths, using hidden trails and rocky passes. The horse led Alina to a secluded valley, where a small stream flowed through the red soil. They rested, drinking water and eating simple rations, the quiet moment a brief respite from the dangers that would surely come. From the ridge above, they could see movement in the distance, Caldwell's new enforcers. The horse sniffed the air, hooves pawing lightly at the ground. Alina felt its tension and focused on remaining calm. "We can do this," she whispered. "We can stay ahead of them." The machines moved quickly, but the horse was faster. It guided Alina through hidden paths, under rocky arches, and across narrow ridges. Every move was precise, every step calculated. Sparks flew as machines struggled to keep up, their metal frames scraping against stone and dirt. One machine tipped over completely, smoke rising from its engine. Alina smiled quietly, knowing the horse had once again protected them without harming anyone. It was a master of defense, using the land, its intelligence, and its instincts to stay safe and outsmart its enemies. By late afternoon, they had reached a high ridge overlooking the valley. The machines below were scattered, some broken, some stuck, and some retreating. Alina looked at the horse with awe. "You are more than a horse," she said. "You are a guardian of this land." The horse whinnied softly, as if agreeing. Its glowing eyes scanned the horizon, alert to any danger. Alina felt a deep sense of respect and gratitude. She knew that together they could face anything the frontier threw at them. Settlers who had witnessed the events from a distance spoke of the silver-coated horse with reverence. They told children and friends about how it had outsmarted machines, avoided capture, and protected its rider. The horse's legend grew, spreading across the Martian frontier like wildfire. Even Caldwell Thorne could not ignore it. He seethed in his office, realizing that no amount of money, machines, or hired hunters could control this animal. The silver-coated horse had changed the balance of power on the frontier. It was a living reminder that courage, intelligence, and instinct could stand against wealth, power, and machines. As night fell, Alina and the horse camped on the ridge. The stars shone bright and the wind swept across the red plains. The horse grazed quietly, ears alert, eyes glowing softly. Alina looked out across the frontier, feeling hope and determination. She knew Caldwell would return, but she also knew that the horse, with its intelligence and courage, would face him and protect the settlers. The silver-coated horse had become more than a creature. It was a legend, a guardian of the frontier and a symbol of hope. And as the wind swept across the Martian plains, the settlers whispered in awe. The frontier had a new protector, and Caldwell Thorne would learn that some things could not be bought, broken, or controlled. The sun was just rising over the Martian plains, painting the red soil in pale gold. Alina Voss and the silver-coated horse had camped on a high ridge the night before, watching the scattered remnants of Caldwell Thorne's machines below. The air was quiet, but both knew the calm would not last. Caldwell's obsession had grown, and he would come again with something stronger, faster, and more dangerous. The horse pawed the ground lightly, nostrils flaring, ears swiveling. Alina felt the tension beneath her hands. She trusted the animal completely. It was not just strong or fast. It could think, anticipate, and react in ways no human could. Today would test that intelligence more than ever. Far across the plains, a faint rumble began. At first, it was barely audible, but gradually it grew louder. Alina squinted at the horizon. A convoy of machines approached, larger and more menacing than before. Some were mounted on tracks, others had articulated legs, all designed for speed and power. Caldwell Thorne himself rode at the front, his coat flapping in the wind, eyes fixed on the ridge where the horse and Alina waited. Alina whispered to the horse, "We cannot let them reach Raid Ridge. We must protect the settlers." The horse's glowing eyes seemed to nod, and it shifted its stance, ready to move. Together, they descended from the ridge, moving along a narrow path that only the horse knew well. Its hooves struck the Martian soil softly but decisively, each step precise, calculated, and powerful. The machines spread out to block escape. Caldwell sneered, confident in his new designs. He had learned from the last encounters and believed that overwhelming force would finally capture the horse. "This ends today," he muttered, raising his voice. "No animal, no rider will defy me again." The horse, sensing the intent, adjusted its pace. Alina held the reins loosely, letting it choose the path. They moved quickly through hidden ravines, rocky ridges, and narrow canyons. Sparks flew as some of Caldwell's machines scraped against rocks, tips catching and engines straining. The horse's awareness was perfect. It anticipated every trap, every turn, every attempt to corner them. A few machines tried to flank them from higher ground, but the horse reacted instantly. With a light stomp, the energy beneath its hooves pulsed, small but enough to shake loose stones and destabilize the machines. One tipped over, sending a shower of sparks and dust into the air. Another spun out of control, its tracks sliding on loose soil. Caldwell's confidence faltered for the first time. Alina could feel the horse's focus. It was not angry, not vengeful. It was precise, strategic, and protective. Every move it made kept them ahead of danger while avoiding harm to the machines or bystanders. The settlers who had followed from a distance gasped and whispered in awe. The silver-coated horse was no longer just an animal. It was a guardian, a sentinel of the Martian frontier. Hours passed as they led the convoy away from Ridge, across hidden valleys and twisting ridges. The sun climbed higher, and Caldwell's frustration grew. His machines had failed again and again, outsmarted by an animal that seemed almost supernatural. He shouted orders to his enforcers, but the horse anticipated every attempt, moving Alina through paths no human could predict. Finally, they reached a deep canyon that led to an open plateau. The horse paused at the edge, nostrils flaring, ears twitching. Alina dismounted, scanning the horizon. Caldwell and his remaining machines were close, converging on the narrow canyon below. It was a trap, but the horse had already found a plan. Alina climbed back onto its back, heart racing. "We trust you," she whispered. The horse lowered its head slightly, then moved forward with calm precision. Its hooves struck the red soil with perfect timing, sending vibrations through the canyon. Small rocks shifted, creating obstacles that slowed the machines below. Sparks flew as metal scraped against stone, engines groaning under the strain. Caldwell watched in disbelief as his convoy faltered. He shouted, "Move faster, don't let them escape." But the horse anticipated every movement, every turn, every jump. It guided Alina through narrow passages, leaping across small gaps in the canyon, landing perfectly on solid ground each time. The settlers who had followed from safe distances gasped as the horse executed a maneuver that seemed impossible. It led Alina to a hidden pass that only it could navigate. The machines below struggled to follow. Some tipped over completely, others jammed against rocks. Sparks and smoke rose into the air as the horse moved effortlessly above them. Alina's heart pounded with excitement and awe. "You are amazing," she whispered. The horse whinnied softly, as if acknowledging her words. It was not fighting, not attacking, but simply using its intelligence, instincts, and power to protect them. Caldwell, enraged, rode forward himself, desperate to end the pursuit. But the horse anticipated his approach. With a precise stomp, a pulse of energy ran through the ground, destabilizing the narrow canyon path. Caldwell's machine jolted, throwing him off balance. He barely managed to regain control, realizing that brute force alone would not succeed. The horse led Alina and the settlers safely to the plateau. From this height, they could see the scattered machines below, struggling to recover. Alina dismounted again, looking at the horizon. The horse stood tall, its silver coat gleaming, glowing eyes reflecting the sunlight. It had done what no human or machine could, protect the frontier without causing harm to anyone but the aggressors. The settlers approached cautiously, cheering and clapping. Children ran to the horse, eyes wide with wonder. Ranchers shook their heads in amazement. The silver-coated horse had become more than a protector. It was a symbol of hope, courage, and intelligence. Caldwell Thorne, humiliated once more, retreated with what remained of his machines. He had underestimated the horse, and he would not forget. His empire of railroads and wealth could not dominate an animal that had mastered instinct, awareness, and courage. For the first time, he felt powerless, and the settlers of Ridge Station had seen it. That evening, Alina and the horse camped on the plateau. The stars shone bright above, casting long shadows over the red plains. The wind swept across the landscape, carrying the scent of iron-rich soil and distant water. The horse grazed quietly, ears flicking constantly, eyes glowing softly. Alina built a small fire and sat beside it, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and awe. "You've changed everything," she said softly. "Not just for me, but for everyone here. They will remember this day." The horse whinnied gently, resting its head near her hand. It had become more than a companion. It was a legend, a guardian of the frontier, and a reminder that intelligence, courage, and instinct could stand against power and machines. News of the day's events spread quickly. Settlers told friends and family how the horse had outsmarted machines, protected Alina, and defeated Caldwell's plans. Ranchers shared stories of its intelligence and bravery. Children drew pictures of the silver-coated horse with glowing eyes, imagining it as a hero of the Martian frontier. Caldwell Thorne, meanwhile, returned to his office, frustrated and furious. He could not understand how a horse had outsmarted him at every turn. Machines, mercenaries, and wealth had all failed. For the first time, he realized that some forces could not be bought, tamed, or controlled. The silver-coated horse had changed the balance of power on the frontier forever. Alina knew that challenges would continue. Caldwell would try again, and other dangers could appear. But she also knew that together, she and the horse had an advantage no one else could match. Its intelligence, instincts, and courage made it a true guardian, capable of protecting the settlers and keeping the frontier safe. As night deepened, the horse lay down near Alina, resting but alert. Its glowing eyes scanned the horizon, aware of every movement, every sound. Alina watched the stars above, feeling hope and determination. She knew that no matter what came next, the silver-coated horse would face it with calm precision and courage. The settlers of Ridge would remember this day forever. They would speak of the silver-coated horse that had defied Caldwell Thorne, outsmarted machines, and protected its rider. They would speak of its glowing eyes, its intelligence, and its power. The horse had become more than a legend. It was a symbol of hope, courage, and the unpredictable strength of life that refused to be dominated. As the wind swept across the Martian plains, carrying dust and the faint scent of iron, the silver-coated horse stood tall, watching over Alina and the settlers. Caldwell Thorne had learned a hard lesson. Some things in the frontier could not be bought, controlled, or conquered. The horse, with its intelligence, courage, and instinct, had changed the Martian frontier forever. And so the silver-coated horse and Alina rode on, guardians of the plains, symbols of hope, and a living reminder that intelligence, courage, and instinct could triumph over greed, power, and machines. The legend of the horse would grow, spreading across the frontier for generations, a story of a protector who could not be controlled and a rider who trusted in its wisdom. The Martian frontier had found its hero, and Caldwell Thorne would never forget the day a horse taught him humility, respect, and the limits of wealth and power.